Hello, how are you? Today, inshallah, we will start with 15.3 applications of genetic engineering. This lesson is a long one. We need to divide the lesson into 3 parts, so follow with me each of these parts. For our first part, objectives, describe the benefits of genetic engineering as they relate to agriculture and industry. So in the beginning, we need to check the benefits of genetic engineering in the agriculture and industry. So let's check what's the main benefits of genetic engineering to those two fields. Let's have a look on these products. Have you ever eat one of these products? Or have you ever eat one of genetically modified food? Look at this picture. Here we have corn, apples, alpha fish, even farm fish. Here it's a farm fish, okay? Meats, tomato, yeast, potato, papaya, eggs, all of these things. Have you ever eaten one of these things? Most of our food today is a genetically modified one because the genetic engineering is going to change some of these food to make it better to the consumers. So if you have eaten corn, potato, or soy products in any of your meals this week, chances are close to 100% that you have eaten foods modified in some way by genetic engineering. So most of the time, corn, farm fish, potato, or soy products contain genetically modified product. How can genetic engineering benefit agriculture and industry? Can you think? Can you imagine what's the main benefits of genetic engineering to the agriculture and industry? Can you look at these two pictures? Can you look at the tomato here? It's large, good, and look at the rice here, two different rices. So the answer, genetic modification could lead to better, less expensive and more nutritious food as well as less harmful manufacturing process. So, better, less expensive and more nutritious food. So the genetic engineering have a huge benefit for in the agriculture and industry. Almost everything that we eat and much of what we wear come from living organisms. And researchers have used genetic engineering to try to improve the products we get from plants and animals. Genetic modification could lead to better, that's the main idea, better, less expensive and more nutritious food and less harmful manufacturing process. Make sure you will memorize the benefits of genetic engineering or genetic modification to the industry and agriculture. Let's start with the first part of genetically modifications, which is the genetically modified crops. Genetically modified crops. Think, what's the main modification that we can add it to the crops to make it better? Can you imagine? Have you any idea? Or do you have any idea? So, genetically modification plants become very important for the food supply. So the first one, which is genetic modification, uses bacterial genes that produce protein known as Bt toxin. Bt toxin. The Bt toxin protein is harmless to the human and most other animal, but enzymes in the digestive system of insects convert the Bt toxin to form that kill the insect. So it's harmless to the human, harmless to the animals, but it's toxic to the insects. So the first modification is insecticides. So the first modification for genetically modified crops is inserting bacterial genes that produce Bt toxin, which is harmful to the insects, which is toxic to the insects but harmless to the human and other other animals. So plants with Bt gene do not have to be sprayed with pesticide. So pesticides really harmful to the human, really harmful to the animal and insects at the same time. So to prevent these harmful substances from being sprayed on the plant, we will use the Bt toxin gene. So we will insert this toxin gene or Bt toxin gene from the bacteria into the plant. So the plant will produce this toxin, and once the insects eat the plant, then the Bt toxin will convert it to harmful substance to kill the insects. They also produce higher yields of crops. Once we reduce the insects that will eat the crops, we will get higher yield of crops. Other useful genetic modification include resistance to herbicides, which are chemicals that destroy weeds, and resistance to viral infections. So there is two other genetically modification to the crops. The first one, resistance to herbicides. As you know, when you grow the crops in the field, there is many weeds, and these weeds will destroy the growth of the crops, or will reduce the growth of the crops. So another gene can be inserted in the plants or crops to make it resistant to the herbicides. So when we spray the herbicides on the crops and the weed in the same time, the herbicides will destroy the weeds and will not affect the crops. So in this status, the herbicide resistance from the genes will increase the production of the crops, and in the same time, all of the other weeds will die because of the herbicide production or herbicide spraying. The resistance to viral infection also, which is a gene that will be inserted in the genetically modified crops, so it will be resistant to any virus that will infect it, and by this way we can increase the production of the crops. So let's make a summary for the adaptation of genetically modified crops from this period, from 1996 to 2007. The modified traits shown in the graph include herbicide tolerance and insect resistance. So herbicide and insects. So this is a herbicide resistance or tolerance, and this is insect resistance. We have soybeans, cotton, corn, soybean, cotton, and even soy. Okay? As you can see, the herbicide tolerance soybeans will increase more the other products. So the percent of production with the years increase for the herbicide tolerance soybean compared with the beginning of 1996. And the same time, as you can see here, insect resistance corn will be it's increased already with the time from 1996 to 2007. Some transgenic plants, also another genetically modified plant, may soon produce food that are resistant to rot or even spoilage. Okay? Engineers are currently developing genetically modified plants that may, make sure that you will know this information, may produce plastic, which is the scientists trying to do these things. They can produce or may produce plastic for the manufacturing industry. Imagine that the plant can produce plastic. Imagine if we can produce a genetically modified plant which can produce plastic. This is imaginary, and at the same time it's really helpful for the industry. The other part of genetically modification, which is genetically modifications on animals or genetic modified animals, like transgenic animals, which are becoming more important in our food supply. Imagine if we can play with the genes of the animals that can increase the production of milk, مثلا, in the kettles, or in the same time, if we can increase the amount of lean meat in the kettles. This is a great part of or it will increase the production of these kettles meat or even milk, and that will be very helpful for the industry. For right now, about 30% of the US milk markets comes from cows that have been injected with hormones made by recombinant DNA techniques. Can you remember the recombinant DNA technique and how we can insert small gene to a larger genome, and then by this way we can increase the production of some enzymes or proteins. So in this case, they make a recombinant DNA for the hormones, and once the hormones is produced, they will inject the cattle or the cows with the hormone, and that will increase the production of the milk. Imagine that's about 30% of the milk in the US market comes from the cows that have been injected with the hormones. Also, the pigs can be genetically modified to produce more lean meat, which is containing high omega-3. And at the same time, using the growth hormone genes, scientists have developed transgenic salmon that grow much more quickly than wild salmon. So if we can use the growth hormone on the salmon, that will increase the production of salmon compared to the other one, which is not using the hormone. At the same time, scientists in Canada combine spider genes. Imagine if you can insert the spider genes that produce the silk in the lactating genes. Once you insert the spider gene that's producing the silk will grow or will produce in the milk. Have you ever heard this word, silk in the milk? This is another genetically modified animals. The silk can also extracted from the milk, and it's used already or woven into threads that can be used to create a light, tough, and flexible material. And it's used, by the way, by the military dress, okay? At the same time, scientists are working to combine gene for lysosome. Can you imagine? Lysosome and antibacterial protein found in human tears and breast milk into the DNA of goat. So, if they can insert the lysosome, which is enzyme that can kill the bacteria, okay, or protein, which is antibacterial protein, it's found in the tears and the breast milk of the human. If they can insert the gene in the goats, what will happen? Okay? So milk from those goats may help prevent infections of or in young children who drink it. So this is a good way to reduce the infections. At the same time, researchers hope that cloning will enable them to make copies of transgenic animals, which would increase the food supply and at the same time help save endangered species. For now, we complete the transgenic organisms and the genetically modified plants or crops, and at the same time the genetically modifying animals. Make sure that you will memorize all of the examples and have a nice day. Bye-bye.